Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The top story tonight, the government is working on the next set of stimulus measures, according to the Economic Affairs Secretary Tarun Bajaj. Earlier this week, the Finance Minister refused to rule out fresh set of stimulus measures. Now, sources in the government say work is underway for new announcements, which could be made within a month. Sapna joins us now to take us through that. Sapna, what can we expect?
Well, indeed, what we are picking up at this moment is that probably the government is already working on the next set of stimulus measures. It may just be in the realm of possibility that these measures may be announced over the next 30-odd days. If that's the case, then probably the government's aim would be to dovetail it with the festive season, because that's the time when demand is fairly more robust than the other periods. Having said that, not really privy to any of the contours or what shape this may take or the sectors that may be addressed. We also are not aware about how much will be the fiscal impetus coming through the measures, but we are given to understand that something substantive may be in the works. Having said that, a quick call on what the estimates are like for the current financial year at this point in time. Of course, all these numbers are dynamic, so given to understand that probably the government's own fiscal deficit for the current financial year could be around the 7% odd range, along with the state government borrowing likely to be in the 4% range at least. You may look at a general government deficit of not less than 11% in the current financial year. We also need to keep in mind the COVID impact on the revenue stream, and that shortfall is likely to be as much as around 2% of the GDP, maybe at least 2% of the GDP in terms of the revenue shortfall. But despite all this, maybe the government may not be looking at deep structural changes in the FRBM law, at least as of now. There is enough flexibility available in the FRBM law to take care of the deviations of the current financial year.
I think the finance minister yesterday in her interaction or day before has mentioned that. She has told us to work on that, and we are actually working on that. So let's see, based on the various suggestions that we have received from all of you, we'll be working on it and trying to do something on this front as well, so that the push to the economy, which is very much needed in these stressful times, is provided.
Well, that is the Economic Affairs Secretary Tarun Bajaj confirming that, yes, indeed, the government is looking at the next set of stimulus measures. Sapna Das reporting could expect something to be rolled out before the next 30 days. Now, speaking of measures to stimulate demand, the central government has decided to pay over 3,700 crore rupees as a bonus to 30.6 lakh non-gazetted employees. The bonus payment will be made in a week's time as a single installment through direct benefit transfer. And staying with policy action, days after agreeing to foot the bill for people who are being charged compound interest on loans during the moratorium period, the cabinet is likely to have approved the modality of the payment. Citing government sources, Lakshman Roy of CNBC Awaaz reports that the cabinet discussed the matter and has agreed to make an ex gratia payment of the compound interest. Ex gratia payment is something that's done as a favour or out of grace without any legal obligation to do so. Now, last week, the Supreme Court had asked the government to implement the waiver before the next hearing scheduled for the 2nd of November. Sources say the centre will communicate its decision first to the Supreme Court and then go public with it. Sources say relief will be provided for specific loans and it will be applicable only for the 6-month moratorium period. Lata is here now to explain the significance of this. Lata, why the ex gratia payment route and what does this mean for borrowers and banks?
I'm going to take a couple of words from what Lakshman Roy has reported. And my sense is that the government is trying to ring-fence its responsibility because trying to provide relief for all borrowers can mean a lot of money, and the government is not in that business. That's what the government is saying when it uses that first word, ex gratia, saying that whatever I'm doing is gratis, it's by grace, as you put it, and therefore there are no rules to say that I shall do this or shall do that. Everything is voluntary. And the second point it is making is the word specified. Lakshman Roy reports that some specified categories will benefit. Now, this is important. Even in the affidavit, we got the sense that loans under 2 crore will benefit. But it was open to interpretation whether all the loans in all loan categories, loans up to 2 crore will be benefited, or 2 crore is a overall limit, and in some cases loans up to 50 lakh will benefit, in some cases up to maybe 10 lakh. For instance, you can't place an MSME loan and say a consumer loan in the same category. An MSME loan of 2 crore is a really small, vulnerable MSME, whereas a 2 crore of a consumer loan is a very rich consumer. So the government could be making a distinction, and maybe that is what it means by specified categories. So we really will have to wait to see in the actual notification, which the government will present before the court, how it is ring-fencing its obligations. Separately, of course, our colleague Sapna Das learns that the total bill for the government will be around 5,500 crores.
Well, we'll have to wait till the 2nd of November. That is when the Supreme Court is going to take this matter up again. And remember, the court had told the government that it must roll out the scheme before the next hearing. Now, more policy action, and this one is a money control exclusive. The government could restrict the new export incentive scheme to just 3 sectors to start with, and that's because of the paucity of resources. Remember, the MEIS scheme, we saw challenges with the government being able to meet that, and that was withdrawn. Sources say these sectors are likely to be iron and steel, automobile and ready-made garments. The Finance Ministry had set up a committee to study the ceiling rates for reimbursement of input taxes and levies to exporters. This committee is expected to submit its report in November. But here's the big interview of the day. The worst is behind us and India will get its mojo back, says the ever-optimistic Aditya Puri, who retires as the head of HDFC Bank at the end of the month. The veteran banker sat down with Lata for his exit interview, exuding confidence as always about a potential economic recovery. He also spoke out against the Reserve Bank's proposal to limit the tenure of bank CEOs, citing the example of himself and Uday Kotak. Take a look.
If you take Uday Kotak and you take HDFC Bank, one is a promoter, one is professionally run, but I would say we are the 2 guys with the best corporate governance. So I think that it should not be for the regulator to put the tenure, not that it affects me. So as long as somebody is performing, Jamie Dimon, I mean, he's been there even longer than me. I think as long as the shareholders are happy, the customers are happy, and you're delivering profits and you're moving along well, it's fine. I mean, if you haven't figured out what he's done in 15 years, my God, you're not going to figure it out after he leaves. The pandemic has only added to that, but our growth was slowing even before. And that was because the global economy was also slowing, and multiple reasons.
So you're doing worse. We're doing worse than the global economy at the moment.
Yeah, Baba, we were doing worse. What happened in September?
Okay.
See, some optimists like me said, wait, have patience, we'll do all right. Now you tell me, and be honest about this, Lata, was the pessimism not overdone? Didn't people know when August end was coming and September was starting that a lot of the industries would be at 85, 90? Or sab ro rahe the, mar gaya, kyun mar gaya bhaiya? Yes, we've had a difficult time. Yes, we had a lockout, but we were having a very good recovery.
I'm just worrying whether we will get our mojo back to, 6%.
Do not worry, Lata.
Okay.
We are in the land of the gods. We will get our mojo back. At the end, I think the worst is behind us. I think we need a lot more positivity so that the sentiment improves. We have been focusing on that direction.
Well, that's great coming from you. That's great coming from you. But then you have been an optimist. I want to get into my favorite. I want to get into my favorite. I want to get.
Lata, wait. Just because you're not sitting in front of me, I have reasonably been close to right there. 25 years we've been having these.
Well, you've been right as far as HDFC Bank is concerned, for sure. But we will leave it there and disagree on other issues at a later date.
Okay.
And you can watch that entire interview with Aditya Puri at 9:30 p.m. right here on CNBC-TV18. Well, a quick check of the other headlines that we're tracking this evening. The markets rise for the 4th straight day, led by financials. The Nifty moving closer to 12,000, but this after some wild swings. Mid-caps clocking marginal gains. In key earnings, Bajaj Finance reported a mixed Q2, profits slipping 36%, but net interest income ahead of street expectations, rising 4% during the period. Asset quality stable. Ultratech Cement beat expectations in Q2. Profits more than doubled. Revenue was up nearly 8%. The company also reported stellar volume growth at 8%. E-commerce giant Flipkart records over 666 million visits during the Big Billion Day sale, with more than 52% visits from Tier 3 cities and beyond. The platform witnesses 110 orders per second and achieves 10 million deliveries in the first 5 days. Aditya Birla Fashion enters into talks with Walmart to leverage the digital prowess of Flipkart and Myntra. Sources say Birlas are keen on a joint venture and are willing to make a financial commitment to build an alliance. The big political story: just a week to go for Bihar to start voting, and the campaign is heating up. The BJP has amped up its attack on the RJD Congress alliance, accusing its leaders of praising Pakistan. Party chief JP Nadda and its star campaigner Yogi Adityanath slamming Congress leader Rahul Gandhi after his tweet, which compared India's economic performance with its neighbours in the last few quarters. Meanwhile, the state's chief minister and JDU Supremo Nitish Kumar has taken a dig at RJD leader Tejasvi Yadav's 10 lakh job promise, accusing him of misleading voters. Yadav hitting back, accusing Nitish Kumar of 60 scams during his 15-year-long rule. The RJD leader has also challenged the chief minister for a debate on key issues. RJD's ally, the Congress, has released its poll manifesto, promising to create jobs in Bihar. Also, we've got the LJP leader Chirag Paswan releasing the party manifesto, and once again the focus is on jobs. And ahead of that, my colleague Maria Shakil caught up with a group of professionals who worked on various social media campaigns, one of them being industry in Bihar. She asked them about their wish list from the next government.
In the month of May, a group of students from Mithila came together to start a nationwide trend. The hashtag was Industry in Bihar. I am with those students here right now with me. Aditya is a software engineer. They are hardly students, I would say. Anup is a chartered accountant. Abhinav is a mechanical engineer.
मैं एक बात बोलना चाहूँगा कि आप जब वो दरभंगा के सड़कों से गुजर रहे थे, तो ऑफ कोर्स मैं बोलूँगा 5 साल में सड़कें बनी हैं, बिजली पहुँचा है, लेकिन आप बताओ दरभंगा मेडिकल कॉलेज यहाँ का सबसे बड़ा अस्पताल है, उत्तर बिहार के लोग इस पर डिपेंडेंट हैं, फिर भी आप मेडिकल कॉलेज पे एम्बुलेंस लेके नहीं पहुँच सकते हो, वन वे है, रास्ता जाम रहता है, कितने मरीज दम तोड़ देते हैं.
Why can't you believe any of the political parties? Why don't you trust Nitish Kumar? He has given us a sense of pride. Isn't that true?
No, I completely disagree with it because नीतीश कुमार ने 2005 में जब वो आए थे तब वो अस्मिता की बात करते थे. तब वो कहते थे कि बिहार को जो है बाहर में मतलब काम नहीं मिलता है तो बाहर जाना पड़ता है. तो उस वक्त लोगों को ये लगता था. आप ये बताइए कि 15 सालों में पलायन घटा है क्या? मैं एक IT इंजीनियर हूँ, तो मुझे काम करना है अपने गांव में, अपने घर में, अपने शहर में काम करना है. यहाँ पे IT पार्क 2014 में घोषणा हुआ था, 6 साल हो गया. नीतीश कुमार ने पिछले 7 सालों में हर एक काम को यहाँ पे अटका के रखा है. प्रोग्रेस एक्चुअली कुछ हुआ ही नहीं है. अभी आप चलेंगे तो आपको दिखाऊंगा, यहाँ पे पूरा मिल बंद है, यहाँ पे पूरा इंडस्ट्री बंद है. यहाँ पे
What now? What in this election? इस इलेक्शन में क्या होगा?
देखिए, इस चुनाव में लोगों के पास विकल्प नहीं है, विकल्प की कमी है. जहाँ तक नीतीश कुमार की बात है, तो नीतीश कुमार ने तो कह दिया है कि यहाँ पे लैंडलॉक एरिया है, बिहार समुद्र नहीं है, विकास नहीं होने वाला है. डिप्टी सीएम सुशील मोदी ने कह दिया है कि बिहार में ज़मीन नहीं है. अभी आप चलेंगे जहाँ पे आप देखेंगे कि यहाँ दरभंगा में है 5 किलोमीटर बगल में अशोक पेपर मिल है, पड़ा हुआ है ज़मीन, कारखाना बंद है. 10 किलोमीटर आगे रैयाम चीनी मिल है, ज़मीन ही ज़मीन है, कारखाना बंद है. तो जनता को ऐसे लोगों को चुनना चाहिए जो उनके क्षेत्र का विकास कर सके, ना कि लोकल, ना कि मोदी के नाम पे, नीतीश के नाम पे चुनाव नहीं होना चाहिए. लोकल फॉर वोकल होना चाहिए.
Well, local for vocal, the seeds of anti-incumbency very clear, but will that result in a change in government? That's the big question. Of course, we're going to be tracking the elections in Bihar very closely. It's time now for us to head into a break, but up next, a report by the World Economic Forum claims 85 million jobs are at risk globally due to automation, and less than half of India's workforce is digitally skilled. That and more when we get back. Well, here's the latest on COVID. Active cases continue to decline for the 18th consecutive day, and with 7.4 lakh cases, India's active case tally is now at the lowest level since the 27th of August. India reported over 54,000 new cases and close to 62,000 recoveries in the last 24 hours. However, the number of deaths in the same period increased to over 700 as compared to 580 yesterday. Daily testing has increased to 10.83 lakh tests in the last 24 hours. The recovery rate has also improved to 89%. Mortality rate slipping to 1.51% after remaining at 1.52% for the last 6 days. A quick check of some of the other headlines. RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das says he believes India is at the doorstep of post-COVID revival. Says RBI deployed instruments that were not in its toolkit to respond to the crisis. Adds the central bank is looking to innovate on instruments to respond to the pandemic. Further, he says the government will have to spell out a fiscal roadmap to drive India's growth engines as we emerge from the pandemic. The Calcutta High Court has partially eased its earlier order declaring Durga Puja pandals as no-entry zones for the public, even as it dismisses the review petition, allows 45 people, including organizers, to be present at any big pandal at any given time, fixes the number at 15 for smaller ones. The Indian government establishes an air bubble arrangement with Bangladesh. Under this, airlines from both nations will operate 28 flights each per week. Opposition ruled states up the ante against the centre's new farm laws after Punjab, Maharashtra and Rajasthan plan to pass resolutions rejecting the new laws. Pakistan's army chief orders an investigation into allegations that the Sindhi police chief was abducted. The abduction allegedly happened as paramilitary troops tried to force him to order the arrest of Pakistan's former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's son-in-law. President Trump and his Democratic rival Joe Biden are set to clash tomorrow in the last presidential debate ahead of the elections. Ahead of the debate, President Trump makes a marginal recovery in the opinion polls. While faster than expected workforce automation would displace around 85 million jobs globally in medium and large businesses across 15 industries and 26 economies. That's the key highlight of a World Economic Forum report that studied the impact of automation in workplaces. It also highlights that 97 million new roles may emerge that are more adapted to the new division of labor between humans, machines and algorithms. Ritu Singh joins us now with more. Ritu, take us to the key findings.
COVID-19 is one of the biggest crises of our time, and it has impacted every single one of us and disrupted every sector of our economies. The automation of work combined with the global recession has led workers to lose their jobs at an accelerated pace compared to what we saw in the previous years. And this trend, according to the Future of Jobs report from the World Economic Forum, is expected to continue going forward. 85 million jobs are expected to be displaced because of COVID-19 in the next 5 years, also because of the ongoing shift in the division of labor between humans and machines. In fact, by 2025, employers will divide work equally between machines as well as humans. And in contrast to the past years, job creation is actually slowing down, whereas job destruction is accelerating. So yes, there will be job losses, but 97 million new roles, ones that are actually adapted to this new task distribution, will emerge, which means in total an addition of 12 million jobs. So let's look at what this means for India with a working population of 58.83 crores. First, the statistics. The labor force participation 55.5%, of which 74% are vulnerable. The impact of the gig economy is 38.5%, which means there's lower productivity in this sector, lower wages, lower pay. The unemployment rate stood at 2.5%. What is the current skill level of the workforce in India? Well, as per the survey, India scored 49% on the extent to which the active population has sufficient digital skills to be able to transform for these roles. It scored only about 37% on the extent to which secondary education graduates have the skills that are needed by businesses, and only 42% on the extent to which the employers find these skills relevant. Now, 9% of those with advanced education and 1.6% of those with basic education remain unemployed in India. And what is worse is 31.1% of the youth have neither the education nor the training or employment at this point of time. Now, this is how things stood, and then entered COVID-19. So how are companies adapting? Well, the survey done by the World Economic Forum, if you look at this, really shows that businesses in India are actually accelerating automation and digitization much faster than the global average, whether it's remote working, automation, implementing of the skills program, and so on and so forth. Now, 90.3% of those surveyed said they will provide more opportunities to work globally compared to, say, 83%, which is the global average. And lastly, if you're looking for a job over the next 5 years, you should really know this. The top 5 emerging roles: AI and machine learning specialists, data analytics, big data specialists. And because of this, there will also be roles that will become redundant over the next 5 years. And those include data entry clerks, administrative executive secretaries, accounting, bookkeeping, and so on.
All right, Ritu, many thanks for that. I also caught up with Veselina Racheva, the lead author of the report. She told me there is need for greater government support when it comes to training workers in automation and digitization skills. Take a look.
Right now, because of the disruption to labor markets caused by COVID-19, what we are seeing is a lot of people are going out of the labor market. a lot of employers are very constrained. And so actually in this context, there is going to need to be more support. And increasingly it's looking like government is going to need to take a more active role in providing more opportunities to train workers, both those in employment today, but also those being disrupted.
Well, that's the future of work. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC TV18. We've got a lot more coming up.